Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Slices of Jazz. Hope everybody's doing okay. It's some kind of weird weather in Nashville today. It looks like the sun's kind of coming out. It seems to be the usual routine these days. It's kind of nasty, and then by the end of the day, usually the sun comes out. Cool. So hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, this week we're going to do intros and outros, right? So just to do a quick recap if you're new in here, this is a Slices of Jazz live course for jam play here. Week 1, I talked about a few scales that work really well, that help get your feet wet with playing jazz. Just kind of how to literally looking at a chord, and then kind of pulling down a menu and being like, all right, that chord can use that scale. Not the only option, like I said, just some good options to get you started, get your feet wet playing. So if you missed that, you could always look in the archives and catch those. Let me see. Week 2, we did a bunch of reading charts. We talked about the different symbols, like with a major 7, how it would be a triangle, or sometimes a MAJ7, right? Or if it just says C, right? So obviously, if it's something in the jazz world, you probably want to do a little bit more than, just your root thirds and fifths, right? Kind of navigated some charts, blah, blah, blah. It was lots of fun. We saw a bunch of different stuff, which is exactly what you see in a bunch of different charts. So this week is fun, and I have a bunch of examples. I think we can get through them all. Either way, if y'all are really into it, you should check it out. So we're doing intros and outros, right? So, sometimes, let's just look at like a gig situation or something. The singer will kick off, or the horn player, whoever is on the gig, the piano player will kick off the tune and you just start playing, right? But with a lot of things in music, everybody likes a little intro or an outro. So I did about 9 here, and we're going to cover a few different styles. So we're going to start with blues. So Chris, if you want to pull up for me blues outro lick number 1. It's going to kind of go back and forth between outros and intros. Like I said, this is a bunch of stuff that kind of came to my mind. I was like, oh, that's a good one, and this is a good one. So, but yeah, we're going to cover some blues. We're going to cover some swing. If you guys have been following the last few weeks, last week we talked about like 2-5-1s, right? And how a 2-5-1 is a very common progression in jazz, right? So if you're in C, we talked about those options and your guide finger, right? And what's so great about the guide finger there is this finger just jumps back, right? So like last week, for instance, we were reading charts, and if your eyes are glued to a page, you're already trying to figure out what the band's doing, everything else. So I took a couple of cool 2-5-1 options with guide fingers, just so you don't have to worry about that part, right? And instead of being like, all right, here's a D minor, I should jump up to this G7 because I know that, right? I showed you some cool options with 2 different guide fingers, the 3rd and the 4th. Here would be the 4th, right? So we're going to do a few of those today. What else? We're going to do some 4-4 minor kind of stuff. That's fun. Some suspended stuff that's cool. And some really neat sort of ballad ending, stuff that I like to use. I just find myself, these are pretty much things I find myself using all the time. So, all right, so let's check out example 1 here, right? Let me pull it up myself. We got blues outro lick number 1, right? Simple, just a couple of bars, right? So, I have found this very, very useful. I will say, too, I labeled it as a blues lick because it is. But you guys know how this goes. You hear this stuff all the time. It might be like the jazziest of jazz, right? Like swing tune. Say this is an E, but let's just say we're like, let's just say we're an F, right? Or like, you're playing like George on My Mind or something. Georgia, and then the end, right? So like I said, a lot of these I'm going to talk about too. Like some of them are pretty rhythmically written out, and some of them aren't. And the reason why I do that is like all this stuff I'm teaching you, take it make it your own, right? Like, just because it's on the page like it is, you know, you can get creative with rhythm, anything, you know, as long, this is just a guideline. So, you know, I like I said, I highly recommend, like, all this kind of stuff, learn it in different keys. Don't just compartmentalize it as a lick, right? That helps a lot. Like I said, make it your own. This isn't just, you know, oh, this is what Austin said, so this is what we're doing here. All right, so you can see I have the fingerings on this as well, but what this is like I said, it would work great over the ending of a swing tune or a blues. So say you're playing like a, you know, a jazz blues, you know, there's a head, or the head also known as the melody, right? Say this is the last time through. Great outro, right? Safe. Works every time. There's no confusion. Always remember this too, guys. And we all have our moments. I mean, I say this all the time. I definitely learned a bunch by falling on my face. A lot. That's how you learn, you know. Good way to learn, in my opinion. But, you know, people always will remember the beginning and the end, right? Who cares about your solo in the middle? You know, somebody told me one time too, just, man, that stuff doesn't matter. Just keep going. It's all about forward motion. You know, and there's no future in the past, as Vince Gill likes to say, right? So, yeah. Like I said, this is a great outro that will not get you in trouble. It's pretty universal in a way. I mean, there's all kinds of variations on it, right? But anyways, let's just learn the lick here. So what you're doing is you kind of have your pinky down on the 12th fret, and like I said, I did E because I figured E works. It's such a good blues key, like you know, that, like I said, this can work on anything. It doesn't, you know, it's kind of got a cool jazz twist too. So I mean, that's you know, that's the fun part of it as well. But anyways, you put your pinky down on the 12th fret, right? Up there. And you'll notice the fingerings, at first we have 3 and 4 here, right? So, I'm not going to talk about this just for sake of time. I mean, I'm talking about a little bit, but, like, I kind of see it, and this is why I think it's really important, too, if you know, like, your cage system, or however you want to look at it. Some people aren't fans of that, some people are, but, you know, pretty much it's your 5 different shapes, right, or forms of chords. Right, and then, you know, you should cycle them back, you know, backwards and forwards. So, the reason why I'm talking about that is because, like, when I see this lick, and years ago when I learned it, I just thought it was some lick that was up here on the 12th fret, right? But I kind of see it in that shape. Now, that shape is horrible to, you know, you don't ever see anybody playing a G formation E chord like that, right? We all have our favorites. That something is great. That's great. This is great. You know, this shape is great. But, you know, I mean, you don't see people doing that a lot either. It's a stretch, right? You know, you do that for 5 minutes and your hand's going to get tired for sure. But point being, like I said, with that system, there's a lot of guitar right there, right? So, you know, I kind of see that lick if you can see it from that perspective, right? It's almost like it's a chromatic. Down, but you know, you're kind of going between this space, right? The G form of E and the A form, right? So just something to think about there. But anyways, moving on. So the lick, right? Pinky down, 2nd, 3rd. This is all 12th fret, right? So pinky on high E, stays there the entire time until we move to the last chord. And then you have your 2nd and your 3rd on the 12th fret of the B string and the D string, right? The 2nd and the 4th. Now, here's the thing. A lot of these licks, too, you can pick, or you can, you can kind of strum, or you can use your fingers. I like to use my fingers for this, just like first, or my thumb. So my thumb is grabbing the D, the 4th string. You know, I hit that once with my second finger, and then with pretty much my second and my thumb, I grab those, right? All at the same time rhythmically. It's nothing too crazy. Right? Now remember too, like I said, make these your own, guys. You can do this. Right? Like, I don't know. I always tried, when I learned licks and stuff, and still to this day, I always like kind of just try to run them as many ways as I can and in different keys and stuff. You know, you can, I mean, that sounds cool too, you know, so like I said, use this. I mean, obviously this is, you know, it's written out and everything, but it's a guideline too, you know. Right, we got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then 1. What I do too, here's the trick to this. So these guys slide down, right? And then I go to the bar there. And then just straight chord. Right? Makes sense? We're gonna move on to the next one in a second, but here's also another trick. Sometimes with, and I've talked about this already in this course, run things in like the cycle of fourths, circle of fifths, you know, so, you know, if you're in E, you can, you know, go to B or A, however you like to look at it, whether it's a fourth or a fifth. That helps, but also chromatic stuff, you know. You know, that kind of stuff helps a lot too. Just a little, just something to think about. All right, Chris, let's go to blues outro, lick number 2. All right, this one's fun. We've all kind of heard it. It's cool. Double stops, right? Double stops are always fun. Now, what's cool about this one, too, is this is something like you can do in a solo as well. Like I said, I just sort of labeled it as an outro because, I mean, you know, like I said, say you're playing along and then here's your end of the blues. You have, you know... safe, right? Remember, people always remember the beginning and the end, right? Don't mess that up. So like I said, that's another cool one. Now look, you can pick it, and this is where it's cool, like in a solo, if you're cruising along, you know. If you keep going, I said I didn't write it quite like that, but see that perspective of it, right? I mean, you can get so much mileage out of that. And I'm all about, like, you know, I always say it's kind of like killing a bunch of birds with one stone, more than two even, you know, like that's how I like to, anytime I learn information like this, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a lick, right? And I think at first when I started learning this stuff, I just thought, well, that's a cool lick, I'll just use it in E. And then, you know, like my teacher was like, no, like put that in different keys, like you switch a note or something, and you could turn this thing on its head in 100 different ways. And once I started thinking like that, and that's the thing I think of with guitar sometimes is, you know, we tend to, like, you know, say you're blues in E, right? You learn, and all that stuff is great, you know, but what happens is you get locked into these boxes. And that's why I think, like, the cage system and stuff is really important. This is a puzzle piece, right? I mean, you know, you got E down there, you got, you know, there's a lot of information in E all over the place. So, I mean, you know, learn those kinds of things all over, and I mean, you just have a lot more stuff to work with, right? Anyways, so going back to the lick here, though, right now you can either pick it. Now this is cool. This is an E7th, right? But we have the flat 7, the 3rd, and then the flat 7 on top again. Right? Not, I mean, you don't really see people playing that chord a lot, but, like, you know, it's... And what's really cool too, and this is just sort of, you know, there's a lot you can do with a third and a flat 7 of a chord, right? So like, check it out like this, just real quick, and then we'll go through the lick and we can move on. But you know, here's your E7th, right? If you move it back one, right? So check this out. I'll play a whole blues. I use that exact thing, right? Why did that work so well? Why, your ear automatically, you know, you're like, oh, there he is. He's on the 4 chord. Oh, he's on the 5 chord. It's over, right? Flat 7, third, flat 7th of the E chord. You move back one, right, chromatically 1 fret. That's the third, the flat 7, and the third of the 4 chord, right? You move back up, you're at E. You move up a half step, right? Third, flat 7, third of the 5 chord. Super cool, right? Like I said, we'll keep moving here, but like it works the same way if you know, here's your third and your flat 7 of E there, you know. Like I said, it's just it's a cool thing, you know. So like I said, I mean, you know, pay attention to that stuff. Keeps you out of trouble when you're playing, you know. Okay, so this lick, like I said, right, same thing. The anchor stays there. That's what's kind of cool about it, you know. Last chord, I'm just using my thumb and these 3 fingers. But like I said, great outro lick. Also, if you're playing a solo, you know. Here's another thing, guys. Like I said, just, you know, think of everything you know, like, and what you like to do when you play guitar, and incorporate it into some of this stuff, you know. All I'm doing is arpeggiating it, right? You know, just alternate picking it. You know, you can even use, you know, you can kind of chicken pick it or hybrid pick it. You let the E note ring or something. Right? Cool lick, right? So yeah, so those are 2 blues ones, guys. That work great. Like I said, make them your own. Grab some, you know. Yeah, just, I mean, don't, like I said, just use your fingers, use your pick. It doesn't matter, you know, just, but, you know, chromatically, right? Like I mentioned earlier, that's another really great way to practice them. Okay, now let's move into swingland here. So, Chris, if you would please, let's pull up swing intro number 1, chord option 1. All right, now this is kind of a lot of the stuff. We looked at a lot of these chords last week, right? So, that, like I said, this sort of incorporates also like the reading chart stuff. Look, 2nd chord, C Sharp Diminished. I could have said C Sharp DIM, right? Another way to write it. You know, so you know, like I said, pay attention to that, observe that. You know, this is more looking more not just like a lick, but in a chart form, right? So you have all your chords above with the fingerings and everything as well. But so, guys, this kind of stuff all day long, it works. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's why I showed you this. It's, you know, it's fairly simple, but like you can't go wrong if you know, say, you know, whoever says, hey, you know, let's just do this intro real quick. I'm going to say something on the mic. Whatever, right? Repeat if you want. You know, it's like, this is the kind of stuff that is like so universally grained in our heads, you know, just like when it comes to jazz and stuff. That's why this is in here. It works great, right? So our first chord, we have a C6-9. Tuning issues here a little bit. Now, like I said, the actual progression is fantastic. And it's just, you know, it's simple, but it works, right? But it also, it's a great use of guide fingers, right? So our C6-9, one of the chords we talked about last week, great chord, right? Use it in swing music all the time. So there's our first chord. Now we're going to the C Sharp Diminished, right? So this is changing. Now if you look on the diagram, you can see the fingers. You have second on the 4th fret of the 5th string, 3rd there. Y'all can see that diagram, right? Right? Now we're moving up here, right? So this was one of the chords I showed last week. The D minor 7 like that. Great voicing. Now what's cool, check this out. Using the guide finger. Back, right? Move back one. You have your tab and your music there too, and your correct fingerings, right? To the G7 like that. Now we're moving up here. To E minor to A7. D minor, exact same as what I showed you earlier, right? Ending on a C6. Now look, right? Say this tune is really fast, and you're reading a chart or something like that. My whole point, again, right? It's like, that's why knowing some of these chords and using these guide fingers is awesome, right? So say it's, you know, practice it up, half step. Half step, right? And that's a great way to really like drill it in, like I said. And you don't have to start that fast. Use a metronome. A metronome is you know, it's your most honest best friend, right? So, you know, like I said, that's a great option, right? Lots of good chords in there. Yeah, and it just really helps use the guide finger there. So, if anybody has any questions so far, let me know. Chris, let's jump to swing intro number 1 with chord option number 2. So this is pretty much the same thing, guys, just a little bit different. I used a different guide finger with the D minor and the G7 and the E minor and the A7, and I used a C major 7th instead of the C6-9. So like I said, I always too, I kind of like to, I don't know, like 6-9 chords kind of always, you know, they remind me more like Western swing, or I don't know. Major 7th, this chord, it's always, it just sounds jazzier to me, like, right? It's prettier or something, right? Now, like I said though, right, same chord there, that C Sharp Diminished like that. Right, so C major 7th, right? Right, now here is the difference, right? D minor 7 like that to a G7th like that. So what we're doing there is, I said this last week too, if you're familiar with like a G7 sus like that, right? This D minor is kind of like that, except we're omitting the high and the low E string, right? But it's, like I said, a fantastic voicing for a D minor 7th. And you bump back, and then you have a G7th like that, right? pinky there. So there's your guide finger there, right? So like I said, it's just another option. To play the whole example, you'd have, you know, right? Like I said, if you get in the fast zone, right? Good way to practice. And like I said, that's the key too, is like you really want to, you got to get that muscle memory going with those kinds of chords, right? I say this all the time, but this is the kind of stuff, you know, you're watching the news at night, commercial comes on, press mute, grab the guitar. You don't have to be thinking about it. But what that will do is that will really dial in those chords. And then before you know it, you're good to go. And hey, look, right? We all don't, you know, nobody likes spaghetti every night. At least I don't. But you have options here, right? You have... Here's another thing too. Like I said, these examples work really well, and they're designed for the guide finger exercise. But mix them up. You know, you can do... Start with the C6-9 to C sharp, right? And then that. So, like, take the first, you know, bar or two of example option 1, and then use option 2 for the other parts, you know? Like I said, the more ways you guys can, you know, weave in and out of this stuff, the better off. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I challenge you if you're like, hey, the second one's kind of harder for me. Well, maybe spend a little bit more time with that. You know, also, I meant to say this too, is the other thing about this, right, is there's definitely, you know, it's very easy to waste a lot of time. Like, we all know our time is valuable, whatever, right? If you're really good, for instance, at option 1, right, like with the D minor, yeah, and I think the thing is with music as well, is it's because it's appealing to us, you know, like actually orally or whatever, it's like you tend to want to do what you're good at and automatically do that, right? But like if you're having trouble with, say, option 2, this one, right? Those chords, that 2-5-1 right there is a little hairy for you. Before you even, you know, go to make, you know, the music that you're already doing well like that with you know, option 1, just start on that, right? Knowing that you need to get better, because I think this happens a lot, is like, you know, you learn a song or something and then the bridge comes and you're like, oh man, I'm never good at that bridge. Well, next time you practice, don't start with the bridge. Don't start with the verse and the chorus, you know? I mean, like I said, you're wasting time. Whereas, you know, if you spend 5, you know, good minutes concentrating on the first half, you're going to be in way better shape, right? All right, so that's what I have to say about that. Chris, let's go to option swing intro. Swing intro number 2, it's called. All right. So this one, right? You know, say we're talking about a tune like in the style of All of Me, right? Do 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 do, you know, da 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 da, right? That tune. Very popular number. This, I chose this. Now look, just, you know, make a note of this. There's quite a few tunes. Obviously, some chord progressions are going to work better than others right off the bat. For like, you know, if it's something like really weird and crazy, I mean, you know, it might not be the best intro of the last 8 bars, is what I'm saying. But some tunes like this, you know, which, I mean, this happens in a lot of tunes, but, you know, like I said, if it was in the style of All of Me, you know, you know, it's just a great progression to know it works, right? And sometimes get used to, you know, hearing that, like I said, with, you know, we talked about reading charts and stuff last week. I hear, a lot, obviously not right now with COVID happening because there's no gigs, but, hey, just 4/4 minor, like start in the end, the last 8 bars, or, and if you know it, I mean, like I said, it gets easier the more that you do it, but that is a pretty, it's common lingo. So, like I said, with this, we do have one new chord in here, which is a great chord. We're starting with an F6/9, right? So, here was our C6/9. Jump it up, with your second finger's now going to. So what this is really is we're starting on a 4 chord, right? A lot of tunes do this too, like I'll See You in My Dreams. Dun, 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 dun. If you know that, it's like it's popular in the gypsy jazz world. After You've Gone, Sometimes I think too that's kind of what can be tricky about jazz is when you start getting into it, it doesn't always start on the 1 chord, right? The 2 chord or the 4 chord or whatever is very popular, chord to start on. But yeah, this is a good intro starting on the 4 chord, so it's 4/4 minor, right? So there's your F6/9, right? Like I said, everything's up here with your fingerings, guys. I'd rather get through more material and you can work on the chords, maybe do that on your own. But right, E minor 7, just like we did. What was that? Option 1 from the other example. Right, here's our E flat diminished. Right, just like the C sharp up here. What's also, notice this is like last week I talked about, do you remember when we were talking about sharps and flats and I said, all right, like don't ever like C, if I'm in the key of C, like the last option, right? Here's our C chord, right? C sharp. You could call it D flat, but the thing is you're moving to D, you're going up, right? So it's always good just in terms of reading stuff and just keeping it just easy for the reader, I always be conscious of that, and like I said, I see it every day both ways, and you get used to reading it, that was part of the the whole purpose of last week's course. But we're F, right? 4 minor, F6/9, F minor 6, E minor, right? E flat. I could have called it D sharp, but it's sort of like let the line is going down, so leave it like that, right? E flat. Right? Now here's the really cool part. So this is a D minor 7th, right? And then we're doing a D minor 9 right here. So what I'm doing is it's like an inner line. It's like the top, it's like a melody, right? For the intro. But you have D minor 7th, D minor 9. So all I'm doing is I'm pulling that finger back 1. And then we have a G7 sharp 5, right? Also known as a flat 13. To a G7th like that. Makes sense? So you have. And then I can't remember the last chord I said, on a C6/9, right? And I also did that, like I said, I'm all about, you learn some of these moves and it just makes life, a whole lot easier, but you're already like, your third finger's there, right? So that's why I kind of do that, right? It's easy just to kind of anchor there and then have your chord. All right, so all together, 1, 2, 3, 4, F minor 6, E minor 7th, right? Using those guide fingers, 2nd, and your Yeah, really your second there. E flat diminished, right? Now here's the cool part. D minor for 2 beats. Like I said, it's as written. D minor 9. G7 sharp 5. G7th. C6 9, right? So it's a neat one. Also, let's talk about swing a little bit, right? All of this kind of stuff, you know, the rhythm is just as important as the the note content, right? So definitely, you know, with swing, I mean, it's 1 and 2 and 3 but it's got that triplet feel, right? So constantly think that. And even if, you know, you set your metronome like that, that will really help. But, you know, right? And it's kind of got that boom chuck sort of rhythm. Boom, 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 boom. Right? That's cool. Like I said, guys, make it your own. You don't. That is not the only way. You know, if, say this was, you know, I labeled it as a swing thing, but say it was really slow and more ballad-like, you know? Kind of rubato or something, right? Which means, you know, like not as in time. You do like kind of some tremolo stuff, right? And then... right, so that's, like I said, another way, like, to do that. All right, let's keep moving here. All right. Chris, if you will, let's jump to, like I said, if anybody has any questions, let me know, and I'll get to them soon enough. Let's go to intro suspended chords lick. All right, this one's cool. Like I said, this one is a little bit more written out. So if you're in C, right, this stuff like this is kind of it's like sort of piano player driven. That's what it always, like, I don't know. I feel like, you know, when I first started learning this stuff, I've heard piano players like do this, where they could, you know, start like a tune and just kind of, you're on a suspended chord, on a 5 chord, right? So essentially, here's what's important, guys. In this example, we're in the key of C, right? But what we're doing is we're starting it with a G sus, right, or a suspended chord. And what we're doing is by using that 4th in there instead of the 3rd, it's that kind of delayed resolution, right? So you have, you know, and we've all heard it, you know. And then, like, the tune, you know. But there you go, right? Like, you want, because that, you know, because that C's in there, right? And then you let it go, and then it comes back. And like I said, we'll get to the example here in a second, but that's a super neat chord. But, like, once C happens, right, your ears are just like, oh, you know, awesome, right? It's neat. It's a super neat, you know, way to start stuff. I don't know, sometimes maybe a little bit more rehearsed. I mean, this is kind of more arrangement-wise. I mean, I definitely do it on the fly. I would say too, it's not. It's maybe a little bit more modern than like your. It can be than like your kind of classic, you know, old school kind of swing stuff. But anyways, so look, we have the chords up there. Don't let this one scare you, really. This is a super cool, right? So here's what I'm saying. This is why it's important, like, to know your positions, right? So like, we all learn G, right? Probably majority of us. You probably really, especially if you're a little kid or something, you learn it like that, right? And then you learn. Sorry guys, this guitar's a little wonky today. You know, and then you learn, you know, your G like that, or I like to do it like that, right? But like, remember, yes, that is like your first G chord there. But remember when I said you learn all your positions, right? So your G form, there's your E, your D, your C, your A, and your G right up there, right? Right, there's that whole bag, right? And like, I'm just touching upon that because like I said, there's a lot of guitar there still, right? And like sometimes you just learn like G, and it's like I learned that G, and you're good, you know, it's like I'm good to go. But if you really like can kind of dig in and around that and see what's going on, you know, especially with like these kinds of chords, they're super easy on your hands. They might be a little bit weird at first. But you know, once you get the hang of them, it's some great sounds. So, like I said, our first chord is a G9 sus, right? So we have third fret, 6th string. Like I said, everything's labeled in these examples too. So, right, and then it's almost like a little F triad, right? Or some people would call it like an F over G. Right? There's, like I said, sometimes with music guys, there's so many ways to label things, but understand it both ways, and more importantly, know the sound, because I think if you know that, and you know like you're in the key of C, and your ear can tell you that. That's sometimes what's hard with jazz, and like what I said earlier, is, you know, with so much music, you know, you're so used to starting on the 1 chord or something. So if you're not used to that, like with things like this, it can be a little difficult at first, but once you do get these sounds in your head, they'll haunt you forever. But all right, so like I said, here's our first chord, G9 sus, right? Now, how I do this, you can either hybrid pick it or use your hands. You know. Now we're moving to a G9 chord, right? So it's a sus because you have the C note in there, right? Which is the 4th of G, the suspension. That's what it's short for, right? Let that go, and you have a G9. Like I said, it's just a very cool voicing. And you know, like I said, with a lot of the jazz kind of stuff, I mean, that sounds so different than that. I mean, you could tell it's the same, you know, but it's... So, you know, learn those... the different ways to play those kinds of chords and stuff, right? So, all right, here we go. So we have, and like I said, it's you have the rhythm in the tab there too. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then you're letting go on the end of 4. 2, 3, 4. Same chord right here. Now let go right there, but what you're going to do is you're going to play the open strings there. And that's your 9-13, right? Because you have the E, here's your 9, there's your 3rd, right? So 2, 3, 4. Right, back to the G9 again. Back to, you know, the G9 sus to the G9, right? Now here's kind of the game changer here. Back to the G9 sus, and then what you do is you pull your first finger back. So take your first finger off, and then put your first finger, and that's the flat 9 right there, right? So it's like the move is release, and then put that guy down. Like I said, you could pull back right there, but it's tough on my hands. And that's a G7 flat 9-13. Like I said, you know, that's music to my ears. And at first, it does sound a little rank. I mean, it's, you know, but I mean, it's you know, it's a totally altered, cool kind of sound. And then you go to the C6th, right? So you have all together. Here's another thing too. I tend to tuck my pick under my first finger like that. Especially if I'm playing electric guitar, even if I were to do octaves or like I said, I'm such a pick player, and I'm gonna do single line. I've just kind of developed that habit, you know. I mean, you could always put it in your mouth or set it down too, whatever you're comfortable with. But like I said, just kind of another, I don't know, just a cool little trick, I guess. But 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Fork in the road, right? And then what did we have us ended? I had us ending on a C6th, right? So like I said, that's another cool, some of that kind of stuff, to me, it can sound so arranged. Like, this is the kind of thing you can use it for an intro. You can loop it as many times as you want. I mean, maybe not too much, it might get a little obnoxious. Yeah, but, and like sometimes, like I said, I simplified it, but the thing is that you got to remember, guys, and you could probably hear the scenario in your head now. You know, is the bass player is gonna? It's a pedal tone, right? Boom, boom. He's just gonna pedal on it, and you know you're adding the other harmony underneath. You're essentially doing the same, you know, both parts at the same time, but. Like here, for instance, right? Like, you know, take the A train, right? Right, classic standard, right? If you wanted to start it, look, and then this is where you can incorporate all of them, right? Say you're the comping, you know. Say it's you, bass player and singer, right, on a gig, right? I love it. Love that sound. Right, now you can take what was it, swing option 2. Right, that inner, you know, with that kind of inner melody line up on top. D minor 7th, D minor 9, G7 augmented, G7th, right? Like I said, you know, the more stuff you know, guys, the better off you are. Yeah, like what I recommend too is find parts of this. Some of this stuff you might be like this example. You might be like, this dude is crazy. You know, I don't care about that. That's fine. You know, use some of the other ones. Like I said, I mean, we all, you know, I mean, I think that's the same true with like transcribing. You know, I mean, transcribing a solo is a lot of work, but for some reason, every time I've ever done it, you know, it's like there's a couple things that always stick with me that I play to this day. You know. Same with the chord stuff. You might find something like I remember when I learned, I was like, "Ooh, I'm keeping that one," and you know I've been using that chord, you know, lick, intro, outro, whatever you want to call it, for years. Let's see here. Let's get to Chris. Let's move to the last thing we have is ballads here. Let me see. Let's do ballad outro number 1. I'm going to answer Big Jim's question real quick, and then we'll get to that one. Ballad outro number 1. Okay, so Big Jim says, I have a hard time with some of the chord shapes that we covered. Do you recommend any exercises to help me make the changes fluidly? Yeah, so like I said, first off, if you're really used to, your sevenths and stuff, and we kind of covered this even in lesson, the first session of the course, right? This kind of stuff, right? That's fine. If you were like D minor seventh like this, right? Or even this, right? Or G seventh like this, that's fine. But you got to remember anything, you don't take an electric guitar to a bluegrass gig, right? It just doesn't, it's not wrong. There's still a guitar player there. He could still be playing bluegrass licks. But bluegrass is supposed to have acoustic, right? It's sort of the same with like chord voicings and stuff. And I think I've hit on this every week we've been doing this. Is that's not wrong, but there's something about the sound. Like I always say, it's kind of dorky, or So what you want to do is, and what I'm getting at with maybe part of your question. You want to get used to these kinds of shapes. And for me, it was the same way. Like D minor seventh like that. It's like, oh, well, that's kind of a stretch. And then G seventh like that. It's like, what? 3 notes. But once you get the hang of it, it really helps. So what I'm saying is, pay attention to those voicings. They sound really great in the style of, like I said. And that could be a little bit of a challenge. Now, also, too, it's also drilling them in. Like the exercises I would recommend, like we were talking about earlier, take a D minor seventh, right? And then to the G seventh like that, right? This was in option 1 of the swing exercise number 1, right? You do that. You have your guide finger. The guide finger, Jim, is something that never moves, right? It never leaves the string. It guides, right? Really get used to that, and then practice it chromatically. And go as slow as you need to. If you need to go, now move it up a half step. Right? And you will get good. But, it's also something you probably need to do every day. Also, I was talking to someone the other day, we talked about like the 21 days kind of thing. It's like, yeah, if you really want to get good at this stuff, and do it every day in 21 days or something. If you do that every day for 21 days, you should probably have it. I'm a big person, I love Post-it notes, and I have a real calendar back there I put things on. Set goals like that, be like, hey, in 3 weeks, 21 days, right? Or 6 weeks, I want to be able to get this or that. That sometimes I feel like helps me a lot with, staying on track. Yep. Okay. I'm gonna get to Eyes Without a Face. This is a good question too, and then we'll hit the other example. But yeah, Jim, I hope that helps. Like I said, the guide fingers are great. Like I said, at first, just getting used to some of those is a little tricky. But once you get the hang of them, you practice them chromatically or with the circle of fifths or something. And yeah, just slowly every day. I mean, just take like option 1 and be like, before I even look at option 2, I'm just gonna, learn that to the best of my ability. Give it a few weeks, and I guarantee you'll make some progress. All right, real quick. So Eyes Without a Face says, I'm having a hard time stretching to the D minor seventh, option 1. Any suggestions to help that stretch or hold my hand differently? Yes. Thumb in the middle of your neck. I think that starts, from the beginning. It's also kind of a classical approach. I mean, it's always been, thumb in the middle of the neck, those kind of stricter rules. But that will help you really get some reach. Now, look, man, too, sometimes this stuff is hard. Like when I play, if I'm like playing in B flat a lot, for some reason it bothers my hands. and I think, you know, especially on acoustic guitar, right? Because you bigger neck, you know, longer scale or whatever. It's like D, you know, C minor seventh like that. It's, you know, you're all the way down there. It's kind of, you know, so yeah. I think in time that will help. It will help get better, but the thumb in the middle of the neck has always been key, and I feel like a lot of people with chord stuff, I mean, you do that and you know, it'll work better. But hey, also look, you know, everybody's hands are different and stuff. If it really doesn't work for you, that's why you got two options, right? You can do D minor seventh like that to that, right? Sounds just as good, you know? And you'll gravitate towards some of them. I mean, honestly, I probably use this more. I feel like it just works for my hands better, you know, because that is kind of a stretch. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. All right, this is a fun one, guys. Now, Ballad Outro 1, I use this all the time, and especially I love when a tune is in C, because you can grab that C major 913 chord at the end. Just real quick. Yeah, and this one's a little hairy. I mean, it's got some chords instead. Like, all the chords are there for you. All it is it's a run in C. So like if you know, if the tune's ending or whatever, you know, everybody's kind of, you know, done searching for what they're searching at the end, and there's time for me to put this guy in, I will. Here's how it sounds. Right? Super cool. Now, the thing is, too, things like this, anytime you know, you might fall in love with some of these chord things I'm showing you, right? And, you know, go hunting on your own. You know, a lot of times, too, you can always take the top note and just play that. But then there's that great 913 chord. Somebody showed me this one time, too. This is like, I guess it's like a brush. Sorry if I don't know, but it's I mean, that is some cool stuff right there, in my opinion. Right? Right? Like I said, all those chords are labeled, right? So what I'm doing there, it's like a C major 7th, right? Top 4 strings. 1 and everything is, you know, it's essentially, to me now, it's like a pattern. But that's what I did, right? Yeah. Right, so really, you're learning, once you get those chords, I don't know why I have to do that thing on there, but yeah, it's just like a few chords, right? And once you get them under your hands, excuse me. Like I said, I just love that at the end, and then you can do the tremolo, right? But yeah, so you have, like I said, everything's labeled, guys. But yeah, you have a C major 7th to a C6 9th, no third, right? C major 913 up to, right? So like I said, even what was I gonna say? Learn these chords first. You can just go. It almost like this one sounds harder than it is. You know, it's like I said, once you learn those chords, you'll find all kinds of great uses for them. But you can just do that with, rather than even doing the rhythm. But I mean, really, we just have eighth notes, you know, so 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Right? C major 7th, 6/9 with no third. It's all C, right? And like I said, it's a great way, say like the singer goes up to, you know, just the C note, right? And you just go. Like I said, just a great way to end it. Right, but C major 7th, 6/9, no third. Now here, check this out. Same thing with the guide fingers. The third finger never leaves. Right? This is the same as this, so just shift it up, right? Looks like an, you know, almost like an A minor 9 too, right? But looks like your A minor, right? It's a C major 7th, right? There's the major 7th in the top. Then you have this one. Back up to there. C major 9, 13. Then you just jump up to the C 6/9 with no third. Major 7th, major 9, 13. C 6/9, major 9, 13, right? All together. What I'm doing is too, I'm like going down to third, right? What is it? Every time. It's kind of like a pattern, you know. But very nice, and like I said, also. Super neat one. And look, I know that's a lot, guys, but learn them. Like I said, do them, you know, chromatically in fourths or whatever, like, and you can get them under your fingers. Sometimes, you know, like I said, I mean, even with that, I hope, you know, even if the chord stuff is a lot, you know, like I said, you can pick and choose from all this stuff. Just go. Right? Okay, guys. Well, it's looking, I think we're going to have to wrap up. We have 2 more, so if you guys want to go into the supplemental material, there's a couple more on outros. But this is a really good one, so I'm glad we got to this one. Yeah, I guess it's time to wrap up. Thanks for the questions. Like I said, next week we won't be here because of Memorial Day, so I hope everybody has a good holiday. And then week after that, we're going to do some common chord progressions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably do some blues and some rhythm changes, things like that. And I'll kind of show you some pretty, pretty standard ways to like sub some chords out, right, with like a tritone substitution. We'll kind of talk about some of that language. Probably talk about some 2-5-1s and ways to, you know, change, use subs for that and stuff as well. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you. Like I said, we won't be here next week, but the following week we'll have week 4 of this course. All right, y'all have a good afternoon. I'll talk to you soon.